Surround yourself with good energy. For you to keep moving forward, you are valid. Regardless, you never know who's excited or happy to see every single day. Hey awesome people, this is John, your English speaking provinciano, and welcome to the new episode of Wednesdays with Awesome John. If you're new to this channel, please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Hey Awesome John, and follow me on my other social media accounts of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Kumu, on TikTok. It's the same username, Hey Awesome John. Familiarity breeds contempt. It's like saying, you know a lot about this thing or about this person, or you already have this closeness or attachment to this person until you gradually lose the respect for the person. So which is actually true. I know most people could relate to that. Because of too much familiarity or too much closeness to a particular thing or to a particular person, we tend to be impatient. We tend to be bored of the same thing. We tend to be irritable at times. I don't know. For some people, it might be most of the time. For example, in your classroom or in your office, when you start to get to know people around, you become more interested because it's something new. It's something that you haven't learned before. It's an idea or it's an information you haven't learned before. So you tend to be excited. You are so thrilled to know the person. You get to be so curious about the person. So you'd love to ask questions or you'd love to hear stories about the person and whatnot. And so later on, you become good friends. Sometimes you end up being best friends or best circle of friends. And it's the same thing with like the people around in your classroom, even inside your home. You get to know about your brother, your sister, your mom or your dad, or even your relatives. Sometimes like we have what we call the extended family. So sometimes you tend to like know a lot about each other on a daily basis. But the thing is, because of too much attachment, because of too much familiarity, we think we know the person that much. We think that we've already heard the entire story of the person. It's like reading a book. When you read a book chapter by chapter, you feel that excitement, you feel that thrill to find out what's going to be on the next chapter, what information, or if it's a story, you'll be excited to know what's going to happen next. After reading the entire book, you have nothing else to be excited about. It's like the story is over, so there's nothing to look forward to. That's how we look at people. That's how we read people. That's how we try to know about the person. We continue reading the person. We continue knowing the person until we think that we've already read the entire story, or until we have heard the story of the person cover to cover, just like reading a book. And so what happens next is that we already have that assumption about the person, or we already have that prejudgment about the person according to or based on what we have read or based on what we have heard from the person. So whatever the person tells you, whatever the person shares to you next time, whether it's new or not, we've already set this impression or judgment about the person. And it's the same thing with boyfriends and girlfriends. We tend to be more excited about the person for the first 3 months or first 6 months, or until we get to reach a year or 2 years, and so on and so forth. But later on, it's so normal when a couple gets so fed up sometimes with each other because again of too much familiarity, because you both think that you've already known the person that much. You think that you already know how he thinks or how she thinks. You think that you are so right to be making conclusions about the actions or about the decisions of a person. You think you are so correct or you are so accurate in making your own judgment or in making your own analysis about a particular behavior of the person. And it's the same thing with the other relationships around. At home, even with your childhood friends, even with your elementary or high school friends, if you've been together for a long time, you think you've already known the person that much. And we forget the idea of growth, or we ignore the idea of growth, or we deny the idea of growth. We forget that we may have known each other for quite a long time, But we sometimes forget that we have our own environment at the moment. For example, you've been friends from elementary or high school to college or whatnot, but you forget to consider that this person also grew up away from you. That means the person grew up from a different environment after college, after high school, after elementary. This person came to a different place, came to a different university, and then you also forget that this person may have worked from a different company, a different culture, or a different environment. And there's always growth in every environment we go to, in every group of friends we have. There's growth. So that's one thing we forget. We are so sure about our judgment or about our assumption of this person that we forget this person also has grown up from a different environment away from us. Another thing is like this. What happens when we get so familiar with the person? What happens when we know a lot about the person? The more we get to know about the person, the less interested we become. And then the more we find out dissimilarities or differences with this person, the less we like the person or the more we dislike the person. And this really happens because normally most of us would want a friend, a partner, or a family member to have the same principles or the same characteristics with us. We feel like we're more comfortable being with this person if we share the same thoughts or we share the same interests or we share the same ideas. I'm not saying everybody does that, or I'm not saying everybody's like that. If not all, maybe most or more. Now, another thing is the idea of you never know the value of a particular person until he or she is gone. We only remember the good things about the person when we are away from them. We miss them. We learn to appreciate their worth or their value when they're not around. We notice all the good things about the person when they're not around. On the other hand, we notice all the bad things when they are with us or when they're around. I remember when I was in a different city years ago, some friends chatting, asking, "Hey John, when are you going back to our hometown? I wish you could go back sooner because I miss you and I miss hanging around with you, or I miss talking to you, or I miss your corny jokes. I miss your presence." That's the point. But I heard a lot of these things when I was away. But when I was back here in my hometown or in my place, I rarely see these people and I never heard them saying the same things. I don't know. But yeah, it's true. So sometimes I just think like, okay, I guess it's really normal. I think that's really human life. We only get to appreciate the people we think we care about only when they're gone or only when they're not around. Yeah, that's the irony of life. So another example is this. Inside the family, we tend to notice especially during pandemic, families learned so much about each other that they've noticed even the littlest mistake inside the house. And that's so true. That's so true. We tend to be impatient. We tend to be more irritable about the person, less understanding, and we tend to be more judgmental. Because again, you see each other often, you see each other every day, and you sometimes get so fed up with the same behavior, the same attitude that you see every day. And that really happens inside the house. How do we deal with this problem of too much familiarity? And how do we also learn to value every person, every loved one that we have, or every friend that we have, whether or not they're around? So I guess I'm going to share my thoughts or ideas. So first thing is the power of distance. It brings us closer to the people we love, family or friends or even colleagues. Why don't we also apply that when we get to a point of being fed up or bored with someone that we have been with for a long time? Why don't we try to a little distance once in a while? Why don't we try to move one step backward and look at the bigger picture and try to understand or try to remind yourself how important this person is to me when he's not around? Try to ask yourself, would I still be hating this person if I don't see him or her? Would I still be irritated with this person if I don't see him or her? Try to remember and remind yourself of the good things that the person has done instead of trying to point out every mistake or every failure that this person has done or has shown. It might be Easier said than done. But I guess it only becomes difficult when we don't really put our heart in it, or if you don't really try. Keep a little distance once in a while. Try to ask yourself how important this person is when I don't see him or her. Another thing is, people say you never know what you've got until it's gone. But actually, you already knew what you had. You just didn't think that you would lose it. You just never thought of the possibility of losing it or losing the person. You knew the value of the person in your life. You already knew, but you just failed to remind yourself that anytime this person or this particular thing might be gone anytime. So I guess that's one thing that we have to remind ourselves. We might hate a person so much at the moment, but one way of trying to cool yourself down is to remind yourself if you would still have the same anger or hate towards the same person if you don't see him anymore. I think it takes a daily reminder to be able to do that. Another reminder is this. Just remind yourself that just because you've been with the person for a long time doesn't mean you need to replace the person with another person. Just because you've heard a lot about this person doesn't mean you can just ignore the person or choose to be fed up or irritated with the presence of this person. Don't lose someone you have for someone you think you want. You know what I mean? Normally, we already picture someone in our life to be like this and that. And most often, we picture a perfect image of this person. But until the day comes when that person doesn't show you the things you expect him to be or the things that you expect him to do and the image you expect him to have or to show. And when that happens, we get tired of him or her. When that happens, we just give up. We just let the person go, or we just get tired of the person, which is so unfair. I think that's one thing we have to remind ourselves. So yeah, it's very simple. Just remind ourselves that there's no such person as a perfect person. And never ever create an image of that person in your mind, because that will only disappoint you. That will only frustrate you. What I mean to say is that be open to the idea that the person and that you both are growing every day. That means expect the person to commit mistakes or to fail once in a while with some things around. I'm not saying you should just tolerate the person in making mistakes. What I'm trying to say is this. Since we already are being reminded every day that there's no perfect person, that means we are all learning and growing every day. Which means never assume that you already know the person this much because you've read the entire book about this person. Never assume or never create your own assumptions based on what you already know or what you've already heard. Be open to the idea that tomorrow the person might learn something new from his office or from her job, or might learn something new from her friends, or might learn something new from his or her own experience. So that means every day we all learn something new, which means we become a different person every day. We become a better person every day. So we should not just limit our assumptions or our judgment based on what we already heard about this person. We should all give ourselves some space for growth. We should never start growing or learning from our daily activities or from our daily decisions. That's my point. And then one more thing is, the moment we get angry or the moment we start hating the person, we tend to cut the communication, or we tend to close our doors for any conversation with this person. It's like we hate the person so much, so we start talking about the person with other people, talking about negative things or talking about anything that we think will justify our hatred. That we talk a lot about this person to justify our feelings. We only focus on the negative things or the bad things that this person has done or has shown because we want to justify our feelings. We want to satisfy ourselves by talking shitty things about this person. And then we close the doors. We don't want to communicate with this person. We don't want to talk to this person because we just feel like I'm not interested. We feel like I'm tired of you. I'm fed up, I'm pissed off. And then we close our doors. We have to remind ourselves that the moment we lose the communication or we cut the communication, that's when the evil starts to get in. That's when misunderstanding of all misunderstandings will start to happen. It's like, since we've never talked to this person after an argument or after a fight, we start making our own assumptions. And we never heard about the person, so we just assume this and that without considering what the other person is actually feeling at the moment. But you will never understand the person because, again, you didn't have a chance to talk or to communicate. You just try to make your own conclusions. You look at her actions and make conclusions without basis. Your only basis, I guess, is the actions you see, but you have no strong or solid basis because you never had a chance to talk to this person. So you cannot justify your judgment or your assumption. That's what I'm saying. To end this episode, I think keeping a little distance once in a while is truly helpful to make us realize the importance of one person or the people around us. When I got back here in my hometown, I have made that decision to also be on my own, to live independently, to live on my own, because I felt like I was more expressive of my affection, of my love towards my family when I was away, because it really made me realize that their importance, their value, and same with friends. And that helped me. Now I get to express more of myself because we don't see each other every day. We see each other once in a while. I get to talk to them once in a while. And it's true, it works for me. I guess that's what I'm also trying to share. Try to keep a little distance once in a while. If you're living together, that's not a problem. But at least give yourself and the other people around a little space sometimes, once in a while, for you to acknowledge how you feel about them when they're not around. For you to ask yourself or to check yourself how you feel about them when they're not around. You would realize their value. And of course, you would realize how much you love them too. Guys, if you like this episode, please don't forget to tag your friends or share this to your friends who you think would learn or would need to learn from this video or from this episode. And also, leave your comments down below if you have anything to say, if you want to share your personal experiences. I would love to read them. And of course, if you have suggestions or ideas that you would want me to talk about in one of my episodes here at Wednesdays with Awesome John, just let me know. And please don't forget to click the notification bell button to get updates for the new episodes coming. Alright, so that's it for today. Don't forget to be awesome. Surround yourself with good energy. For you to keep moving forward, you are valid. Regardless, you never know who's excited or what you're happy to see every single day.